So this is Jitendra and Dr. Amita here, and we are going to cover a presentation in this video which is on narcissistic abuse. And this is mainly based on my understanding of narcissistic abuse from reading these two books. The book cover pages are presented here in the first slide. The first book is from Shannon Thomas, and it is titled Healing from Hidden Abuse. And the second book is Becoming a Narcissist Nightmare by Shahida Arabi. And Shannon Thomas, who is the author of the first book, she has written the preface or introduction of the second book. So both authors are on sync as to what they are describing here. And but at the same time, whatever I'm covering is my understanding. I have tried to distill it down to my understanding, and that is what I'm presenting here. And I do not claim to be an expert here, especially the person who is going through narcissistic abuse may actually need an expert therapist to take help. So just a brief disclaimer about it. And in this video, we will mainly cover the abuse cycle and what makes it so difficult to come out of it. And if you are a sensitive person with lot of empathy for other people, you might want to listen to this particular presentation because it could be a great help in terms of how you relate to people, especially how you should relate to people when you meet someone who is difficult and challenging in your life. So let's start.
Okay.
So like I mentioned earlier, we are mainly going to cover two things. One, abuse cycle and the trauma bond which gets formed. And the second thing is we are mainly going to cover as to what makes it so difficult to come out of this situation. So this abuse cycle has a pattern, okay, and this is somewhat surprising because it is not like people who are narcissist, they actually learn this cycle somewhere, but somehow almost all narcissistic abuse cycle will have this kind of pattern more or less. So somehow it looks like it is built into human nature, which gets refined over time with the experience. So the phases of abuse cycle are mentioned here. The first phase is the idealization phase. The second phase is the devaluation phase, and we will go into the detail into each phase subsequently. So devaluation phase is where you will have the maximum abuse happening. And then there'll be a discard phase, and after discard there will be a phase which is called destroy or smear phase, and the last is the hovering phase. So let's go to the idealization phase first. Before we go to the idealization phase, let's establish some context or background here, okay? So when we are talking about narcissist, we are talking about someone who has complete lack of empathy. It is not as if low in empathy. There is no empathy present. That is what we are meaning here. And because there is no empathy, the person is not having any sense of remorse or any guilt. And because they have no empathy and they have another thing which is going on is they feel no compulsion to reciprocate your kind behavior. So normal people with empathy, we always put, we always, most of us, we try to put ourselves in other person's shoes, and then we try to understand what that person is going through, right?
Yeah.
And based on that, we conclude that whatever I said, probably it has hurted other person. That is how we generate our remorse or guilt, right? And also, when someone is nice to us, we almost feel a compulsion to reciprocate their nice behavior, their kind behavior. Now, this person, narcissist, has no remorse or guilt and has no compulsion to reciprocate. They don't feel that compulsion. And the compulsion which normal people feel, that compulsion is not a developed compulsion. It is almost like ingrained in them, into human nature, okay? So
Yeah.
this makes um, you know this makes both people very unequal. So a person who has no empathy, who is a narcissist, versus a person who has empathy, both are having no sense of equality as such, okay? Both have a
Okay.
different inner working, inner software, inner world, okay? And narcissist people, they have somehow very developed observation skills, and this happens mainly because from very early in their life, from childhood itself, most of the time from childhood itself, they realize that they are different type of people. They realize that they don't feel the same level of empathy. They realize that they are not generating same kind of emotion or excitement on certain triggers which other people are experiencing, right? So because they realize they are different and other people are different, the only way to understand other people is to start observing them, because if they put themselves in other people's place, they will not be able to predict other people's behavior,
Yeah.
right? So so they, because they know, they have seen it very clearly, they are different, they start observing people much more keenly, much more objectively, okay? And by the time they become adult, they have developed this particular skill to a good level of mastery. So
Mm.
they are very keen observer of people. They keep looking at your face, they can read your face properly, they will know which what ticks you, what makes you insecure, what makes you laugh, what makes you sad. They are very good at observation, okay? So when you are meeting with a narcissist, that narcissist is observing you very very keenly, much more keenly compared to you, and they are very manipulative people. They are
Mm.
very manipulative people because the only kick they get out of life is to see people in distress, because they don't have empathy, they are not able to have any true meaningful connection with people, they do not get any kind of nourishment from people, connecting with people. And that is the reason they, that may not be the reason, I don't know, but the point is, most of them, they actually, they 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 develop this liking to poke people and see people in distress, see people in exhaustion, okay? That is what they like, that is the excitement for them, that is the kick they get out of life. And when we say narcissist, means anyone can be a narcissist, or a narcissist can be found in any role. Okay, so your boss could be a narcissist, your colleague could be a narcissist, your spouse could be a narcissist, obviously husband or wife, both gender could be narcissist. Your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend could be a narcissist, parent could be narcissist, your sibling, brother, sister could be narcissist. And you can basically find a narcissist in any kind of social setup. You go into a club, probably you'll any setup where there is a social norm and some kind of hierarchy where you have to feel compelled towards obligation. You could find any, you can actually meet a narcissist there. Doesn't mean that you will meet, but narcissist could be present anywhere. And not only it's like that you will find narcissist in an individual capacity. In a worst kind of situation, the whole family could be a narcissist.
Yes.
So a girl gets married to a family, or a boy gets married to a family, the whole family is narcissist. Okay, and that would make it much more difficult because each of them will actually support uh, abusing you. Okay, and similarly it's quite possible that a particular group within the office might consist of 2 or 3 narcissists.
Yes.
So now we want to cover people who can easily become target for, who can easily become a victim of a narcissistic abuse. Okay,
Yes.
so people with high level of empathy, people who are very sensitive and who are overly concerned about other people, right? People who have low self-esteem, people
Yes.
who have low self-confidence. Low self-esteem and low self-confidence, basically it comes from I am not lovable, I am not good enough, I am wrong. Something is wrong with me, right?
Yes.
So for whatever reason, if people have low self-esteem, low self-confidence, and these beliefs like I am not lovable, I am wrong, I am not good enough, then these people have certain other um, traits. So these people have strong need for validation. And by the way, I was all of this, so I'm not kind of judging anyone here, but just to explain it better, we are taking this as an example. I doubt there are many people in the world who have very high self-esteem and high self-confidence. But if there are people who are particularly suffering from low self-esteem and low self-confidence, who have these beliefs like I'm not lovable, I'm wrong, I'm not good enough, then these people, they develop these traits. They develop very strong need for validation. So whatever we do, we need a validation from someone else, whether
True.
I'm right or wrong.
Yes.
And we feel responsible for how other people are feeling when they are interacting with us.
So
Right?
it's like always watching out, or being
Yeah.
guarding. Yes.
Anytime someone who is interacting with us seems to be upset for whatever reason, we feel, did I do something wrong? Right? Did I say something? Did I not meet some hidden expectation? Is this person going to again, reject me or leave me? Those kind of insecurities are there from which these people are functioning.
Yes.
And they have lack of boundary. Most people don't understand the concept of boundary, and there are no boundaries here. And most of the time we are worried about, did I do something wrong? why this person seems to be upset, right? So people with these kind of beliefs and these kind of traits and these kind of needs and these kind of functioning, they become very easy target for narcissistic abuse, and we will get to know why subsequently. But this was mainly given as an example. Most people have these traits in more or less quantity, but some people will have it in a bigger doses. But make no mistake, anyone with empathy can be a victim of narcissistic abuse, no matter how intelligent, successful, talented, or even powerful they are. So it is not as if only weak victim people who are not standing on their feet, they become a victim here. Even very powerful people, they become a victim of narcissistic abuse. And when we understand the cycle in detail, probably we'll get to know why or how. So
Yes.
like we said, the first phase is the idealization phase, okay?
Mm.
And this is the phase where a narcissistic person is meeting the potential victim in any kind of social setting, okay? So when you meet a narcissist, so narcissist people, they have basically, two phase. First phase is for wider audience, and for wider audience, they are very nice people. They are people with who are very gentle, who are very caring, who are probably very ethical also, and there are a lot of people who will think very high about narcissistic people, and only few people who are in close intimate relationship with the narcissist, they get to see the real abusive narcissist. Okay, so when you meet a narcissist, okay, they will appear as kind, gentle, understanding, caring, and helpful people. So your first impression would be that this person is very nice, and you will feel like they like you, they care for you, and they value you for who you are. And you will feel that they love you and they accept you. And how do they do this? Okay, because they have a very strong observation skill. So when they are meeting you, they are observing you very keenly. They are noticing what you're sharing, what you're speaking, and very easily they are able to mirror and mimic your values, your desires, your hobbies. So when someone is mirroring and mimicking your values, desires, and hobbies, you feel as if both of you are similar people, both of you are having same liking, same insecurities, same point of view about the world. And this is where you start opening up yourself and you start trusting the other person a bit more. Okay, and you will feel as if you have found your soulmate, because you are discussing topics, you are sharing your experiences, and other person is matching it, other person is sharing the same thing, other person is talking about the same thing. Okay, and this is how you start to develop trust and liking for each other. And they will love bomb you. Okay, they will send you so many WhatsApp messages, they will send you so many messages, they will give you so many calls, right? So you will falsely assume that the narcissist can't live without you. They are so madly in love with you, they need you so much, you fulfill their gap, right? So you'll falsely assume that they cannot live without you, and you start to lower your guards, and they get to know all your insecurities, all your secrets, all your desires, all your goals, weakness, traumas. So once they know all this from you, your insecurities, your secrets, your desires, your traumas, right, your past experiences, then you become much more vulnerable if they do not have empathy, if they do not have a compulsion to honor your boundary, if they do not have any compulsion to reciprocate your kindness, right?
Mm.
But you don't know this as of now. As of now, you think you have met your soulmate. You have met the best person on earth who can ever understand you. You have met a person who not only understands you deeply, who values you for who you are, and who genuinely cares for you. And that person cannot live without you. So you fall in love with them and you open your inner world to them. So you start trusting them, sharing with them, and depending on them for your emotional need, emotional connect.
So
And then
basically, of this while they are just manipulating.
they are just doing this on purpose. They are not on. See, the point is they can do this only on purpose because they have no capability. They have no ability to connect authentic way. So if
So
this is happening
basically,
with a narcissist, it will be done with a with a awareness
agenda. Yeah.
agenda. And finally you get hooked into the relationship,
Yes.
right? So that is the purpose of idealization phase, okay? That finally you get hooked into the relationship. You have started trusting them, you have shared everything, you have started depending on them for your emotional need also, okay? So this is where your devaluation phase will start, okay? So devaluation phase would be, the starting point would be a sudden insult, okay, or a invalidation or a put down, which would be very shocking to you, and it will create a lot of pain and shame, and it would be very vicious in terms of how you feel. And this creates a dissonance, which is a weakness of human mind. Dissonance is very, very painful for human mind, and it needs to be resolved. Whether you resolve it in a way which is helpful to you or other way around, it doesn't matter. It needs to
Mm.
be resolved, okay? So dissonance is this, that you have just gone through this idealization phase which lasted few months or maybe years, okay? And you have created this image that this person is a very kind, caring, gentle, nice person, and just now you have received an insult, okay, which is very painful and shocking to you, which shows that this person is a mean person. This this recent experience says this person is a mean person, this person is an abusive person. But you have this 3 months, 6 months, 2 years of idealization phase, which tells you this person is your soulmate, right? So two impressions, two images of the same person in your mind, this creates the dissonance, and this is very painful to the mind, and it needs to be resolved. Means one of that has to be accepted and other image and impression has to be discarded,
Yes.
right? And most people,
Very
they,
conflicting and damaging for the
right,
who is the victim here.
right. So this is where most people, they start, they give benefit of doubt, okay?
Mm.
They say probably he is going through some difficult time,
Mm.
something happened in the office, maybe he is angry because of something else, maybe something else happened. Or if you are a poor me victim kind of person, I am wrong person, you will feel that maybe I said something, maybe I did something, maybe I didn't do something, right? But whatever way you resolve that dissonance in favor of ki I need to remain in this relationship, and maybe it's either my mistake or maybe it's a one-off incident,
One of its kind, yeah.
right? And this is where, the start of many psychological tendency which kick in, because once you give this benefit of doubt, or whatever way you justified or rationalize it, when next time it happens, you tend to again rationalize and justify it. And especially if you are a person who is doubting himself or herself all the time, that maybe I am wrong, maybe I am not lovable, maybe I did something which he doesn't like or she doesn't like, right? So that is how, every subsequent abuse will get justified and rationalized, especially because initially after every misbehavior or abusive incident, the the narcissist will come and say sorry to you, right? So then you start again, accepting their apology. But if you understand certain psychological tendencies, then you will realize that consistency and commitment is again a built-in tendency. So you want to be consistent with your previous behavior, so you accepted this abuse, you justified, rationalized it, so you have a higher propensity now to justify and rationalize it subsequently. And if you are again a person who is always doubting, I am wrong, I am not lovable, then you will always feel that it's my mistake. Okay. And this is how this emotional and psychological abuse will keep increasing in its frequency. Okay. And it will also have intermittent doses of validation, approval, and love. So this intermittent doses of validation, approval, and love, which is not having any regular pattern, it doesn't have a predictable pattern that my this behavior is generating abuse and my this behavior is generating love. There is no consistency there. Okay. So any of your behavior could generate abuse or anger from narcissist, and the same behavior from your side next time could generate love. Okay. So this will create much more anxiety in you as to how do I change myself, how do I change my behavior, how do I change my approach, so that I get less of abuse and more of love. But with time, gradually the scene would be the abuse will become more and more frequent, and your validation, approval, and love will become, lot more less compared to the past. So this unpredictability of when you will get your validation, approval, and love, that has two effect on you. Okay. Because you don't know which of your behavior generates anger or an abuse, and which of your behavior gives you acceptance, approval, and love, right? If you knew that this behavior gives me anger, this behavior results in acceptance and love, you would be peaceful, you would be you would be relaxed, because you know what will give you what, you are in control. But here, purposefully, you will not get that sense ever that my this behavior is going to result in a safe reaction versus this behavior which will generate abuse. So this will keep you always on toe, always on guard. Okay. And you are on toe and you are on guard, and you are always trying to orient your mind as to how to change yourself so that you get your dose of love, right? So while you are constantly on toe, you are hyper vigilant, and you are trying to modify your behavior so that you don't get abused and you get actually approval and love, right? But you keep getting abused while your mind is seeking when I'm going to get love. So your experiences of abuse while mind is seeking love, both gets mixed up. Okay, so experience of abuse gets mixed up with love, and it creates the trauma bond. Okay, so trauma bond simply means you become addicted to the experience of abuse. So tomorrow if you decide to leave the narcissist, you are the person who will start missing him or her, and that would be very surprising to you. Why I again want to go and meet this person who is going to abuse me, but again I feel compelled to go and meet this person. That is because of trauma bond. Okay, so you try to comply and are constantly on toe and totally consumed by his or her behavior. And not only there'll be abuse, there'll be gaslighting and crazy making. Gaslighting simply means to make you doubt your perception, to make you doubt as to whether you understand correctly what is happening. So let's say you recall certain incident while in discussion with the narcissist, and the narcissist will say, no, this didn't happen what you're saying. Something else happened. You didn't say this, you said this. I didn't say this, I said this. So basically, this is a purposeful act towards making you start doubting yourself whether I'm actually remembering correctly what happened. Okay? And crazy making is another behavior pattern which is mainly through conversation, mainly through irritating conversation. So they will come, they will start doing any kind of conversation, and then they will pull you in, then they will suck you in, and then they will start attacking you, then they will start abusing you. Okay, and you will think, what happened? You just gave a neutral opinion about, let's say, any topic, and they will suck you in and they will pull you in, and then they will start piling all kind of abuse on almost every aspect of your behavior. So the final point is, the focus is always about them, in the sense you are always putting your focus on them to the exclusion of everything else which is happening in your life. They become the center focus of your life, and while you are getting abused, you are always doubting yourself. Your focus doesn't go into the abuse, your focus goes into, why did I, what did I do that I'm getting this as an experience, this as a response. Okay, so along with doubting yourself as to what is your mistake, you will also start doubting whatever you feel, think, remember and believe and perceive is reliable or not. It's like you're losing your sanity. So everything generous you do for them, they will make you a failure. So we tend to try to influence other person's behavior by being kind to them, thinking as if they will feel a compulsion to respond in kind, but they don't have any such compulsion. So all your generous, kind behavior towards them, they can give you a response which is abusive response, which could be very shocking to them, shocking to you basically. And you start really doubting yourself ki, how can this person behave like this to me when I'm being so kind to this person, that means definitely something is wrong with me. Definitely I did something wrong in the past, if not now, right? Because it doesn't fit into your paradigm of expectation that when I'm being so decent, so kind, so helpful, how can this person remain angry, abusive, insulting to me? And all my generous behavior is actually being returned in terms of an insult and hurt and abuse. So everything you do, it will fall short of their expectations. They will always justify you falling short of what they were expecting.
It's like you cannot ever please them. Nothing can
Perfect.
please them.
Yes. And when you are complaining, when you complain about all the abuse, see, the narcissistic abuse we have described in much more detail in the first video. There you will get the bigger picture. So you might want to listen to that video. But you are going through real horrific abuse, which is very painful, okay, which is very hurting, which is very shameful also. And whenever you complain to them that their behavior is hurting them, this behavior was so hurting, so painful, um, it was not fair, right? So whenever you try to complain to them or share your pain, they will either make it trivial, as if it was one-off incident, it was not so severe, he didn't mean that way, you're being. So they could make it very
Just
small incident.
or just making up stories,
Yeah,
You're making
yeah.
it
Or they could
like
simply say कि you are too sensitive, or you are unforgiving, you are taking one incident and you just keep complaining. Or
making
they
a
will,
more yeah,
or
like
they will say,
Raika Pahad, yes.
right. Or they will say you are not letting go of the past. Okay. So this information is very useful for very naive kind of people. That's why I said this video might be helpful for some people who are sensitive and have a lot of empathy, because see here, you are complaining that you are in pain, their behavior is hurting you, and they are saying you are too sensitive, you are unforgiving, and you are not letting go of the past. So they are putting the blame on you. Now you have to defend yourself. So you went with a complaint and they are responding to you in a way where now you are on back foot. Now you have to defend yourself. Okay. And this is how most people manipulate or abuse other people, even outside narcissistic context. Always the ball will be put on your court, and that is how most people manipulate, control, and dominate you.
So it's
But
like you're caught off guard,
yeah,
You
right,
don't have any say.
right. Or they will simply change the topic. You went for certain complaint and they will start talking about something else to distract you, to deviate you from the topic. Okay. Or they could do something called stonewalling, in the sense they they will simply go out for 5 6 days and not come back. Silent treatment means they will simply not talk to you, they will simply not respond to you, as if telling you that whatever you are complaining is immaterial, it's not worth, right? And again here, because they are able to do this, you start doubting if this person is stonewalling me. Silent treatment means again definitely something is wrong with me, because in your paradigm of human behavior, you don't have this possibility that someone can actually respond to your vulnerability in a shockingly attacking way. You are being vulnerable, that you are complaining, and they are doing this stonewalling and silent treatment. Okay, this is not something which normal people do, but because you don't have this possibility in your paradigm that there are certain people who are narcissists, who do not have any empathy, who do not have any compulsion to reciprocate any kind behavior, you start severely doubting yourself, why he is doing it with me, you know, why he or she is treating me like this, means definitely something is wrong with me. So this is where this understanding that there are certain people who do not have any guilt, who do not have any remorse, at least at conscious level, who do not feel any compulsion to reciprocate, this will actually help you to change your expectations, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist. Okay?
Yes.
So they could blame you, or they could simply attack you, or they will gaslight you as if, you know, whatever complaint you are doing, that incident didn't happen, or it happened in a totally different way. They said something, you heard something, you said something, they heard something, right? So they will always so point being, whenever you are complaining about any behavior which hurted you, you will never have a meaningful, to the point discussion where there would be a conclusion, where your hurt will be accepted, where your pain, hurt will be accepted, and you will feel a sense of sorry from them and a apology that they will not repeat it, right? It will always be either deviation or attack on you or gaslighting, but you will never have the satisfaction that yes, I had a meaningful conversation with this person. Okay, and again, if you are a person with low self-esteem, lack of confidence, you will again go into this, you know, maybe it's my mistake, maybe it's my karma, whatever, right? So this is how we start digging ourselves into a hole again, you know, further and further and further, because every time we get unexpected response from them, we start doubting that definitely something is wrong with me. So the effect on you, okay, effect on you in terms of abuse. So because you are always on guard as to how this person is going to react next, so you are almost like having a adrenal pumping happening most of the time when you are around narcissist.
Yes.
So because you are always on adrenal pumping state, you will feel drained and depleted, and it will affect your physical health. It will affect your energy level. It will affect your vitality. Okay, and you are addicted to the trauma through trauma bond. And something else also happens, which is called learned helplessness. So learned helplessness is initially when you are getting abuse, right? You try to defend yourself, you try to protect yourself, either externally or at least internally psychologically. You internally psychologically feel that yes, I will change something, I will do something. You will have certain hope that something can be done to reduce this or avoid this in future. But with time you realize that, you know, this person is not going to change, and no matter what you do, there is no control over when this person will attack you. Okay, so after certain point you give up defending yourself. So this is the point when they are abusing you and you are not defending yourself even within your mind. And when you are not defending within your mind also yourself, all that abuse is actually received at energetic level and starts to get stored in your body. Okay, you have given up internally, and you have stopped defending yourself, and you have no hope as to what you have to do in future when this happens again,
Mm.
right? So it's called learned helplessness. And you have lost trust on yourself, and you have got so much shock that this person could be like this, so you tend to not trust anyone else also, and you are always on self doubt as to why I am getting this kind of treatment. You feel lot of shame, you know because the abuse is very insulting. So you would not find yourself presentable to the rest of the world. You don't want other people to know what you're going through, because you have no answer why you are going through that. And you have a never ending inner critic voice also, because you are always judging why this is happening to me, why I'm inviting this, what should I do this next, how should I change this, how should I come out of this. And you feel isolated and lonely, because that is one of the very planned strategy of a narcissist, that they gradually make you alone. They will isolate you, they will make you give up all your friends, they will disconnect you with all your relatives through systematic abuse. So whenever you want to go and meet your friend, or whenever you invite your friend, they will create a drama, they will create a tantrum. Okay, so next time you feel that it's much better not to invite them, it's much better not to go and meet them. So this is how you get isolated, and you start feeling alone and lonely. The most powerful mechanism they have for control is toying with your emotions. So unless they can play with your emotions, unless they can poke you and trigger you and exhaust you, they have no control over you, right? So we have to see this clearly, that most of the interaction with them, I am in the triggered state of exhaustion. Okay, and you are essentially getting trained over time to become afraid of doing the very thing that once made your life meaningful and fulfilling. So everything you liked in the past, whenever you want to do that, that initiative, that act of you will actually get mixed with abuse. So let's say if you like playing lawn tennis, okay, and you're going to play lawn tennis, and they'll start blaming that you are a very selfish person, you don't take care of this, you are always thinking about this, you are spending money, you do this, you don't do this, and all that. So everything which you enjoy in life, whenever you want to do that, it will, your mind will say that, she is going to say this, or he is going to say this. So everything which was enjoyable for you, which was something you were excited about, something you look forward to doing in your day-to-day life or in future, whenever you will try to remember or recall that, it will come with a pain in your mind of abuse incident. So that is how you are getting trained to give up everything you are enjoying, which you used to enjoy, which was meaningful, which was nourishing to you, which was fulfilling to you. So I described all this in detail because people who have not gone through this kind of abuse cycle, they will always simply say, why this person has gone through this, why would anyone go through this kind of abuse, right? So the first thing is the idealization phase, which creates the dissonance, and that creates the start of the abuse getting justified or rationalized, right? So this is how it gets further and further rationalized, justified, accepted. And if you are a person who is having empathy and self-doubt, and when you see the narcissist person is always blaming, always angry, and never feeling ever sorry for their behavior, so you start feeling that because they are never feeling sorry, definitely, they are very convinced in their mind that they are right and what they are expecting from me is justified, and I am not fulfilling their expectation, and therefore I am a bad person, right? So this is how it is getting sustained. So the game is, you are receiving abuse, but you're doubting yourself. Okay? The game is about self-doubting while narcissist is abusing you, so that you don't even notice the abuse. And they're master at that. So now let's try to um, understand what makes it so difficult to come out of this kind of abusive situation. Because the people who are going through this kind of abuse, they have this additional self judgment, they have this additional attack on themselves, which is making them further weak as to, not only I'm getting abused and I don't know for what reason, why I'm tolerating this abuse, and why I'm not able to come out of this abuse, why I'm not able to leave this person, and on top of that, why do I feel compelled to go and meet this person, sit with this person, interact with this person, live with this person, while knowing fully well that I'm again going to get the same kind of abusive treatment, right? So that self judgment, that self blame, that makes you even further weak, and you start having no confidence whatsoever that it must be my fault, as to I am simply tolerating this abuse and not doing anything to come out of it. Not only not able to come out of it, I am actually feeling compelled to interact with this person. So it creates so much of shame, it creates so much of self judgment. So this particular slide is mainly to give you a bigger picture as to, it is not simply a case where a person is abusing and you have a choice of coming out of that and you're not making it, right? So let's try to go through everything which is going on when you are in an abusive relationship with a narcissist. So first of all, you are dealing with a person who has no remorse and no guilt, and you don't know that. Okay? So if you knew that this person has no remorse, no guilt, your expectation would change. But if you don't know that, you keep expecting the same thing, and that creates, a vulnerability for hurt. So this person has no guilt, no remorse, has no compulsion to reciprocate, right? So you have no influence also whatsoever. On top of that, like I said in the beginning, the narcissist has two self, okay, two faces. The first face, which is presented to the wide world, is the false self, which is very charming, which is very impressive, and there are a lot of people who believe narcissist person is really good person, nice person. And then the other thing which is happening is, so other thing which is happening is, which happens most of the time, that abuse is not recognized as abuse. So the other problem which happens is, most of the time abuse is not labeled as abuse by the victim. It is not recognized that this is abuse, I am getting abused. Most of the time the victim is thinking that this person is very angry, this person has anger problem, this person is short tempered, because most of the abuse, whether it is insult or cruel jokes or anything, is it's most of the time having anger into it. So we, for a lot of time, victim will think that, this person has an anger issue. And another thing which keeps troubling the victim is that they keep doubting whether this person knows what he or she is doing, whether this narcissistic person, this narcissist, does he or she know what they are doing. Because we never feel that they know what they are doing, because in our paradigm, if someone knows that they are hurting other people, they will stop doing it, right? So we are always in doubt, do they know how much they are hurting us? And this creates a lot of problem. We start giving them benefit of doubt, probably they don't understand, maybe they had a bad childhood, maybe they have a lot of insecurity, maybe they have anger problem, right? But some of us somehow function from this paradigm that unless they feel guilty or bad about their behavior, it's all your mistake. You have to keep changing yourself to the point that they start feeling bad about their behavior, and they may never do it. The other thing which is going on is lot of shame. You know, we want to hide what we are going through from the world. Then isolation, we feel alone, we have lost all our friends, we have lost connection with our family members. Okay, and to cope up with the abuse, we are automatically into denial and dissociation many of the time, you know because, like, our mind plays certain tendencies so that our sense of self, it doesn't get broken so much, which becomes irreparable, right? So a lot of coping mechanism gets kicked in without our conscious or uh, intention. So a lot of denial is happening, a lot of dissociation is happening. You could even have um, amnesia about certain incident. So a lot of horrific abusive incident, you would say it has not happened, or you are not able to even recall also. Then you might have reached to the point of learned helplessness, where you have simply given up, that no matter what I do, I have no control over stopping or changing this abuse. So you simply give up, right? And you have no confidence left on yourself. Self-esteem is very low. Your self-worth is also destroyed,
Mm.
right? And no one will believe you. Initially what happens is, when you try to describe the abuse which you are going through to any of your friend, any of your well-wisher, okay, when we take any of the abusive behavior as one or two or three or four item, most of the people will say that this is pretty common, this happens with most people have experienced this, okay. but you are experiencing this all the time, and you are only experiencing this and that too all the time, and you are always on guard. You have to be always on your toe. That kind of uh, sharing that what you are going through, that itself becomes a problem. Because when you are sharing about, he said this, he does like that, she does like this, she said like this, when you're talking about 3 4 such incident, the any normal person can say that this happens in many people's life, and that becomes a very discouraging kind of uh, feedback for you. You start to feel that maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe I'm very weak, I should not feel hurt and I'm still feeling hurt, I should be strong. So this becomes a big problem, that no one will believe you, because no one has this context, no one has this paradigm that there are people with no empathy, no remorse, no guilt, no compulsion to reciprocate, and they are single-mindedly focused towards destroying you through abuse, through manipulation. And this manipulation and abuse is being done on purpose, fully knowingly, and they enjoy it, and they are doing it on purpose, and they get a kick out of it, right? So this becomes a bigger problem. You are not able to share and get a feedback from other people in the world, that what you are feeling, the pain you are going through, the shame you are feeling is justified, is how other people will also feel, right? And that gives you again a lack of confidence and self-doubt. On top of that, you have this unhealthy addiction through trauma bond. You are doubting yourself as to why I keep going to this person, and other person, anyone else will also say, why don't you come out of that relationship, right? Why are you still living with that person? And then you have a lot of self blame happening, negative self talk is happening. So the point being, you have to see that it is not a simple choice to simply say no and come out of this situation. You have to see the bigger picture. You have to see all the psychological forces which are acting on you, which are mostly against you, especially because you are not aware of them. If you are aware of them, probably you can do something to counter them. So when you understand this big picture, hopefully you will be more gentle with yourself. You will be more having compassion for yourself, and probably either stop judging yourself or blaming yourself, or at least reduce judging and blaming yourself as to why you are not able to come out quickly. So just few more slides, I think 3 more slides. So some important insights which we need to absorb here if we want to deal with the situation better or come out of it. Okay, so first thing which we have to understand is they are wired differently, and they use manipulative tactics which are beyond our wildest imagination. That's why even brilliant, intelligent, and even strong people can become a victim. The second thing which we have to know is, we think they are very moody people, and that's why their behavior is very unpredictable, and that's why they can become angry at any given point of time, and sometimes they become very nice and gentle and loving. So we finally conclude that they are very moody people, and that's why you know they they are angry most of the time. But we have to realize that they are not really moody, and their mood is not changing automatically. They are doing it on purpose. They are doing it to exhaust you. They are doing it to keep you on toe.
Mm.
Okay. The other thing which is very difficult for most of us to realize and accept is that they know, the narcissistic person, that narcissist knows what he or she is doing and choosing to do it knowingly and enjoying it. That they are doing it knowingly and choosing it and enjoying it. So realizing this is the most important point, because we tend to feel if they are doing it, maybe they are hurt from me because they are doing it to me,
Yes.
right? So we need to come out of this, that it has nothing to do with, at least my behavior doesn't justify this kind of abuse. Okay. And another thing which is this, that we keep hoping that things will improve in future they will change somehow. Okay. The message from the books are, no matter how hard you try to fit in to meet their expectations, it will never be enough, never good enough, and always somehow something would be pointed as wrong. Okay. So no matter what you do, you will not have any influence on changing their behavior. And because they
Yes.
are doing it knowingly, they are doing it consciously. And the last important point is, they do not feel authentic empathy for your emotions.
Mm.
So most of us, we value our emotions so much as if my emotion will influence other person, which is true in most situation, right?
Mm.
But it is not true here if you are dealing with a narcissist. Your emotions do not invoke any empathy on narcissist,
Yes.
right? So if they are doing it knowingly, and no matter what you change in you, you will never meet their expectations, right?
Yes.
And they have no empathy for your pain. So what hope you have? The whole point is, look at the situation objectively, and on what basis you want to maintain the hope that it will change in future. So coming to this realization that this situation may not change, I have no influence over that. Do I simply want to remain and keep getting abused? Is the question. To sit with this question is very painful. To see this reality is very painful, but this is where the turning point comes. So that is why it is not easy to come out of this situation. Because seeing the situation as it is itself is very painful.
Yes.
So that is the point here, that recognizing and acknowledging the reality of abuse, grounding ourselves in the reality of abuse, rather than engaging in denial, minimization, rationalization. Right? I am getting abused. This behavior is abuse. This person is abusing me. He is abuser. And I am getting abused for no fault of me. That realization needs to come, because then we will start asking hard questions to ourselves. And you also need to see how lopsided this relationship is. They don't need your love. The narcissist doesn't need your love, but you feel compelled to need their love, which they can withdraw any damn day. So you need them, you need their love, and they have no obligation, no compulsion towards that. So it is very important to remember that psychological abusers never change. Toxic people will simply replay the same idealized, devalued, discard song again with the new targets. So some of the suggestions here is that we have to first take control back over our emotion. We should see how we can develop that capacity where we are not getting triggered so often, because that is how they control us. We have to identify all the lies they are telling, because they are chronic liars. Okay, they have no morality or ethics which will compel them to say that let's try to be honest here. They are chronic liars, and they will use all kind of lies to manipulate you. So identify all the lies, identify all the contradictions. Do not personalize. This is important in the sense, come out of this notion that something in me is inviting this behavior in them. I did something, that is why they are angry, and that is why they are doing it to me. You need to come out of this.
Yeah.
See the
It's
abuse
like,
correctly. Yeah, sorry, you were saying something?
no, it's like always going into the self-critical mode and blaming
Yeah,
oneself.
right. So see the abuse correctly, because once you see it correctly, then only you can do something about it, right? And come out of this shame. And it will not be easy, but at least make this as a goal, that if I keep feeling shame and I want to hide, I will not be able to come out of this, because I'm in a very weak position. I need help, I need support, right? So you have to take support, you have to come out of the shame. Also realize they are not insecure, they are not doing it out of their insecurity, they are not doing it out of pain or frustration. And see them and their behavior in completeness. Somehow we tend to forget um, the frequency of abuse which we receive. So that is why it is recommended that maintain a journal where you can keep noting down all the abusive incident, and then you can look back into 1 week, a month, or 6 months, how many moments of abuse you had and how many moments of acceptance and love or gentle, neutral, regular behavior you had. Keep spotlight on narcissist, not on what did you do wrong, not on where you need to change. Keep spotlight on narcissist, so that you can see what they are saying and how much of that is true and how much of that is actually a lie. Take help, which wo- which is very important. Validate your feelings and perception. So validating your feelings and perception is a way to gain self confidence back, because invalidation of your emotions and feeling is a very constant theme in narcissistic abuse. So you start doubting, I should not feel hurt and I'm feeling hurt. I should not feel like this. But you have to develop some compassion, validate your feeling, validate your perception. Okay? Then create new reward circuits in your mind. This is to counter the trauma bond. So creating new reward circuit means go for, let's say, any physical activity. It could be walking, it could be running, it could be mountain climbing, it could be any other engagement which is going to give you the same kind of hormone secretion which is coming currently from trauma bond, so that you can actually create new reward circuits and come out of the trauma bond compulsion. And finally, avoid emotionally charged interaction with them, because that is how they exhaust you, that is how they pull you into their drama. So this is the end of the presentation, but whatever suggestion, recommendation which I have covered here, they are not the everything which you have to do. In the sense, you would need lot more support to come out of this situation. You will have to take lot more steps, lot more choices, because fundamentally there are three things which are needed. Okay, one is, defining your boundary and implementing your boundary. If the person is able to do it, then well and fine. If not, then you have to go into detached contact kind of relationship, or you will have to go for no contact kind of relationship where you actually come out of the relationship. So we have not spoken about that, because that is the real choice, real step, and that is where you will have a lot of inner resistance, inner challenge. That is where you will need a lot of support. So point being, uh, whatever I have covered in terms of suggestions, they are mainly oriented towards how to see your situation differently and how to stop blaming yourself unnecessarily, and how to not expect yourself to easily come out of the situation very quickly. Okay, so that is the main point of this presentation. One thing which I realize is, I have not covered the other cycles of, or rather other phases of the cycle. So we covered mainly the idealization phase, we covered the devaluation phase. So this is the phase which is the longest phase, and if you get into that learned helplessness kind of situation where you simply give up even though it's very damaging to you, after that what happens is, if the narcissist is not able to provoke you, not able to bring emotional exhaustion in you because you have given up, then he or she stops getting the kick which he was getting from you as a victim.
Yes.
So sooner or
Yes.
later they will find that you are not giving the kick which they need, and they would want to discard you. They will simply move you out of their life. And that
Yes.
discard phase would be very painful for you, because you had certain connection, authentic bond with them. On top of that, you have trauma bond, and they had no connection with you. They will simply move on. They will dump you in a most horrific way. Okay, and after the discard phase, they will do a smear campaign. In the sense, they will tell the family and friends and other people who know both of you that it was all your mistake, you were crazy, you were to the blame, and they will put all the blame on you. They will try to establish that you are the crazy person. That is the destroy and smear phase. And the last phase is the hovering phase, and this happens when, after the discard and smear campaign phase, sometime in the future, narcissist would want to come back into your life, again want to come back and connect with you, establish a relation with you, say sorry to you, and and will say ki, let's start again. So this normally happens when after the horrific abuse cycle you have gone through, and if you start to again find your footing in your life, and again you start to build something in your life, standing up in your life, they would want to again connect back to you. And if you say yes and connect back, the same cycle will repeat, and they will again give you another cycle of narcissistic abuse. So they do not come back to say
Yes.
sorry, even though they are saying sorry. They are not doing it out of a sincere apology. They are again back here because they want to again destroy you.
So again, they have an agenda.
Again, they have an agenda. So with this, we have come to the end of the presentation. Again, two things I want to say. Whatever I have covered is my understanding from these two books.
Yes.
So it is pretty subjective. I do not claim to be an expert on this topic, but unless you are actually working as a narcissistic abuse specific specialized therapist, not many people would be expert on this topic. And you don't want to meet many narcissists in your life. If you are able to survive one or two, that itself is going to be big. So I hope you found this presentation informative and useful. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Jitendra. It was that what means so many insights to it, new insights.
Thank you.